We're running.
We're running.
Working. What's up?
How's it going? Welcome, welcome. Good to see your face, dude. It's been a long time, Jonathan.
Yes, yeah, dude. Fuck yeah. Oh, you, Jonathan.
Yeah, no, it's weird, isn't it? Especially when you consider there's literally between your name and my name 2 letters, dude. Fuck.
Yeah. Fuck, sorry. Just
Yes.
have 2 messages, prick.
Look at that monitor in the back. That's awfully straight.
That's on mine.
Yeah, I figured. That's way too straight to be on monitor, dude.
I even had to get some fucking help now to make sure my shit was straight because my camera would have been skew otherwise as well.
Oh, is your webcam attached to the top of your camera?
Yeah, so that would have been fucked.
Oh, that's
So now
terrible.
I'm like stopping my head from doing the whole tour.
No, man. So,
No,
I'm surprised this scheduling came together with only 1 delay, dude. I was expecting when load shedding shot up to stage 6 that this would be a lot harder. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't want to just the subtle flex of being on a grid that doesn't get load shedding.
Are you for real, dude?
Yeah, it's pretty fucked. Our substation like broke down every single time there was load shedding, so they got like this waiver thing signed to avoid getting load shedding. And this was like last year sometime, and ever since.
Dude. Look, I can't complain because thankfully being in Durban, we don't get load shed that much.
Yeah, you guys get like a lower tier, I think.
Yeah. So we get like, I get 2, maybe 4 hours a day if on a bad day. I mean, other than that, it's not so bad.
I mean, yeah, that's a little more manageable. Yeah, some people get some fucking heavy ones, like double 4 hours in the same day, dude.
But where are you? You're in Joburg, eh?
Pretoria.
Where about in Pretoria?
Ferry Glen.
No idea where the fuck that is. I'm not even gonna lie to you, dog.
Yeah, Menlyn.
Okay.
That side.
I'm not too far from there at the end of the month.
Oh, lovely.
I'm gonna be in. No, not moving, just visiting.
Lovely.
My girlfriend's brother's getting married, so we're gonna make a short trip up.
Oh, that sounds dope. Fuck.
But you were just here in Durban, not with all the sun too, hey? You just picked a good time to come down.
Yo, dude, it was good, but we were meant to come down on the Monday, and fucking as we started driving, like 2 hours into the drive back from Durban, it literally the engine cucked. Got to it was like a blown gasket or whatever it was, and then had to get like towed to a station. We went and like just put up in like a fucking B&B for like the week. We literally only got back on like Friday. We had to ride off the car because it was like over 100k worth of like repairs, and we were like, bro, we could just buy a new fucking car.
Whose car was it?
It was my girlfriend's mom's. I just backtracked them.
What car is that?
It was a Ford EcoSport.
Yes, is at 100k you can almost buy another EcoSport, bro.
Yeah, that was legit. Like we were like, add 30k on, you get a fucking new one, dude.
Mental. Oh, that's unfortunate though, dude.
Yeah.
So what did you guys come down for? Just enjoy the beachfront and holiday?
Yeah, we just came to just get a bit of a break from all this cuck. The load shedding. Like we fortunately got like this area that just had like constant Jenny running. So we were like
where about did you stay?
Port Shepstone.
Tier 1 holiday home area, that one.
Yeah.
Even people in Durban have holiday homes out in Port Shepstone. It's just there, Belito. Those are the 2 spots that everybody goes.
Yeah, Belito, a fuck ton of people go there.
So how did the games go tonight?
Pretty good. It was literally the first time IGLing again.
Again? When was your previous experience IGL?
The stint, I don't know if you remember DNMK's stint where we came second against Bravado in Comic Con. Well,
and you were IGLing there?
Yeah, that was when I was IGLing, yeah. I picked up like halfway through that, yeah.
And how do you find IGLing versus just playing the generalized rifling support type role?
Honestly, I couldn't be more comfortable. At first, if I was like picking it up first time now, I would be like cucking. I probably would have like denied the role in the first place. But ultimately,
so how did that whole change come about?
So initially, actually, what happened was when I joined the BVD roster, and Aaron was like, "Cool, he's going to be AWPing obviously, but there was it was open to like potentially like it was more so like he was going to be IGL, but like there was potential down the line that there could be a shift or whatever.
Yeah.
Depending on like how things went, but then he like really enjoyed the role. He was excelling in the role. I think there was just a bit of like a throughout the year he always had a vision of what he wanted with his IGLing, and he couldn't get that like style and understanding across to like the whole team as a whole, and so it caused a lot of like disconnect and ultimately a lot of like I kind of said it to my team, like more times than not, we didn't really lose to anyone throughout the year. We just kind of lost to ourselves almost every game because it was just our own mistakes that then other teams are really good at punishing. So obviously, like
Especially with how aggressive Aaron is.
Yeah,
his teams tend to be very aggressive. So if you're not on the same page, it does create some serious issues because you end up almost playing two separate games.
Yeah.
So what is your style of RGLing at the moment?
So what I'm trying to like introduce without obviously like giving away too much.
Of course.
But, like is like it's a pretty default orientated, like we're gonna take it as we go. I'm going to be laying a very firm cement for the team. Well, not cement, foundation. For the team, and getting everyone on the same page no matter what. Practices and stuff like that is going to come down to explaining everyone's role to a T, and ultimately for me what I feel like is we don't do anything too special in South Africa in the top tier of the scene. So much so to the point where we're not at the point where we need to be anti-stratting, where we need to be going out of our whim to try and get a one-up on another team. I feel like we play a pretty standard style. We obviously have our own flair to it. There's no deny to that. But at the same time, I feel like introducing a European kind of defaulty play style where you work at punishing teams rather than doing something flashy or crazy yourself to try and get a pick in the round. You play it nice and stock standard, get that punish pick into the round, and then go from there.
That sounds like you learned that from a different RGL who also likes to play slow and standard.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, I think Mistim is gonna be one of the biggest ones for me. Like, and obviously, like his work with Spray, and a lot of what Spray did to us has rubbed off on me. Under Slowy, like his kind of the way he likes to think about the game, and even I want to go way back to like Ninjask, Byron. Like that's an old name that like you don't hear ever because like it's not a big name everyone would talk about currently because obviously he stopped and doesn't play anymore. But for me, he was a very influential person for how I view the game now, and I think he was like he laid that foundation like thoroughly.
I mean, going back to 2018, right? When you were in, I mean, you played with us for a little bit, and then you moved on to the Online Kingdom lineup.
Yeah.
And realistically, what are the differences that you have found between that, I don't want to say era, but that tier of Counter-Strike in South Africa versus the top? Because from my understanding, and there's not much difference between, for example, the way I would like teams to play CS, which is kind of slow. You run your defaults, you have a couple variations on defaults, but predominantly you go get map control and just reacts to what information you get. And what seems to be reasonably effective now even is that style of play with a few little nuances here and there.
Yeah. Like I kind of like a tad bit more of what I was saying on earlier. For me, it's we don't particularly have a set style or like it feels like it's like a bunch of different region styles that we try and mash up together, and like one team will be some super aggro 5-man kind of exec and then go as a team behind like a kind of some sort of util, compared to like a another super slow team that will have all their defaults set in place, and then they will have protocols, reactions, and everything will be set, and everything has to be done and practiced and dry run, compared to a team that might be very relaxed and have a defaults where they kind of let all their players, like for instance, if I go back to DNMK, how I IGL then is not how I'm wanting to IGL now, just because of the players I have on the team. I feel like when I was in DNMK, it was a lot more. I had the ability to just kind of call a general start to the round on how I wanted it to like play out, and then I kind of left everyone, and everyone kind of worked their positions by themselves. And then when someone would get a kill or work a pick somewhere or find a gap opportunity, he relays that to me, and then we kind of work off of that. So that is something I obviously want to have, but it's kind of a basic thing I already want installed in my current team.
Yeah.
So that's kind of maybe where I can say there's a difference between that, like I wouldn't say like DNMK and stuff like that as a lower tier, but at the same time, I feel like the level, if I want to go back to like when I was in WRG, the calling then and how we viewed the game as a team then, and I still played. It wasn't like it was a team of players that weren't aware of like or experienced or didn't have a good grasp. But we had RMP, we had Zio, we had like big names in our team. I think that's when I still played with Vulge at the time. So like it's quite a cool like thing that on top of everything else. But that's like a side. But yeah, like back onto it, I think there is quite a difference, but like in a lot of smaller areas, not like one huge difference. Like, oh, okay, in your lower tier team, they don't do this at all. In high tier team, they do this, 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 and this. I think there's the starting blocks in all these lower tier teams. There's the starting blocks. I just think the top tier teams know how to take it further. And I think a lot of the time in the lower tier teams, it's mainly one person taking charge and not really people all feeding in and giving the same energy, same suggestions and stuff. It's kind of like one person with a dream bringing 4 people in who kind of seem keen.
There is there is a very clear lack of secondary callers who are capable at the lower level. It seems like everybody assumes the RGL's God, and then nobody understands the fact that like, no, your RGL has a general idea, but he does need 4 other people to
all bring it to the party. Like,
and communication is the one thing I've noticed is a very clear lacking piece of the lower tier, because you find that most people think calling one person, well, there's one apps. I mean, yeah, fine, but what's all the utility that was thrown beforehand? I have no idea what's left. How do I call and execute on one person? Because like on Mirage B apps, I don't mean to be funny, but one person can, if he's got full utility, he can lock it down quite easily still. Like it's so, like, and that's the one difference I've found, especially it's just that in the lower tiers, I feel like it's those areas of communication that lack. And this is not coming from somebody who's played at the top tier, I'm not gonna lie to you.
No, but like, I mean, like, even if we pull it back, like you said, like we had our stints in our
a long time ago.
Days, yeah.
That's a long time ago, dude.
Bring back the Omo.
Yeah, dude, I came back and played a bit recently. Yeah. I played last year for, I don't know, 6 months. With Sarah,
yeah, I saw that.
But feel like the game, because I was out of it for a year and a half, when I came back it's just not the same. I'm not quite able to, there's something shitty about seeing all the people you used to play with. Like, dude, I think I've still got a video on YouTube somewhere of me absolutely destroying Mango Vulge before he was even Vulge. Back then, and I think the video, I think I dropped something like 38 frags or something stupid against them, and like it was him, Rockstar, Mia, I can't even remember the rest of them.
I was like, oh,
it's just like, and now, dude, I'm not even gonna pretend like I could even pick up 10 at the high tier, dude. Like, I kind of,
it's crazy. You chill. Like, I like I had it as well. It was that period right after I left ATK. It was literally like 2 months I took off, and then I got asked. I had like a few offers from some teams. I was super over it. I was like burnt out from like our ATK stint. Like the hours we pulled just for pracs alone were ridiculous. And just at that point, I was just like, nah, I'm done. I needed to chillax. I did this for like an entire year. We did what we did. We dominated, and now I'm happy. CS is not bringing me any more enjoyment right now. Like I just need to relax. And then like a month into it,
There's that niggle, that just that little yeah.
And then like I think it was heartbreak, and he broke me. Because right after I left ADK, I think it was like a week. He messages me and he was like, yo, we are looking at like potentially making some changes or whatever at the time, and would you be interested? And I was like, yo, look, to be honest, I really have zero motivation for the game. I won't bring anything to the team. I'm gonna be like a literal zombie if you like put me in a team right now. And then he was like, cool, just let me know when you're like keen or down, you want to play. And I was like, sweet. And then about I think a month pulled around. He like re-messages me again. He's like, sure. Like
he was in for the long con, eh?
Yeah, he knew.
He knew.
He knew he was gonna. He was rent-free in my head since that first message. And then when that nibble came, and then I still went to him. I was like, cool. Look, I like. I won't lie, could be a cool thing, but like I don't know. I still like I'm really not feeling it at the moment. Like it's potential interest for the future again. I told him maybe. He was like, cool. I think it was like a week or two later, he just popped it again, and I was like, you know what, fuck it. Let's send like when we're doing the trial, you know. And then we literally, I think we did like a trial or two, and then everyone was down, and I popped in. But like super sidetracked off of that. But like yeah, like what we were originally saying is like you take even how I felt like coming to that point where I like did the trials and stuff like that. I felt so out of it. I felt so left behind. I felt like I needed to go and like grind fucking aimbots for like
dude, it was crazy
every day for like thousands. Like
even with my shitty level and like okay, look, first of, second of kind of level, I was when I came back grinding something like 5 to 10,000 aimbots a day, just trying to get something. Just because what I found was like I could either hit the shots on the edge of the screen or in the middle of the screen, but there was no. One day it was the middle, one day it was the edge. That was it, dude. Yeah. Like I just had no consistency. I mean, it was just no. I just found that everything was just
play the game like every single day.
Dude.
That was your lifestyle, and then like it's so strange. Like you can feel like it feels so toxic, and then you give it up, and you're like, cool, finally we're like relieved of it, and then just.
But for me, it took a while before it came back. So before I joined Omnius, I'd only been playing for about 18 months, maybe a year, because it took me 2 years from never having touched Counter-Strike to playing at LAN for the first time.
That's crazy.
So I'd never touched Counter-Strike before ever in my life, and then in 2 years made LAN.
Big. You actually like actually no wait.
Because we did 3 LANs that year for us.
Didn't either. Bringing him up again, but like it's a similar story for him as well. You reminded me of immediately. Like it just wasn't like nobody just comes in, just fucking smashes. It's cool. It's really cool. It's
the one good thing about Counter-Strike. I mean,
natural talent is there, and like if you have natural talent and you can just build on that, it's like compounding. It's crazy.
But I put something like 3,000 hours in like 3.5 years. Or something stupid.
Yeah,
I spent every single day. I would work my normal job 8 until 4:30, come home from 5 until midnight. I was in Counter-Strike. That's all I did. And then on the weekend I would wake up at 7 or 8 in the morning and start, and then finish that night. at like
Well,
midnight and just repeat. That was my laugh.
I remember like being like, I wouldn't be able to do this now, but I still remember being able to like getting up early in the morning. Everyone's fucking jamming into the matchmaking lobby. You get the invite at 10 a.m. and you guys just
That's all you do, dude.
after MM. It's fucking 3 in the morning, and you guys have played like 12
Oh,
MMs, and you're just like, another one.
I miss it though, dude. Like
Yeah.
I miss that, but I don't miss what it cost me because
Yeah.
I gave up a large portion of my life, and I actually lost a whole bunch of friends for a while. Like I just didn't see
Same.
friends, had no girlfriends. My life just revolved around Counter-Strike.
It's taken me a long time to find that balance, to be honest. Even
I
like
think yeah.
I've lost real life friends because of it, and that's solely on me, like just not being able to balance everything.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you say, oh, I'll message them, and then it just
Never comes.
yeah.
You know that saying, tomorrow never comes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like no, this weekend I'll make a plan, and then
Yeah,
the weekend
no,
comes and you're like,
shit, they messaged me. I should probably respond, and then it gets to a point where you've done that so much, you're like, it's probably rude to actually respond.
dude, yeah, I mean, I just remember waking up one morning and all my mates were no longer in the same WhatsApp group. They'd all had another WhatsApp group, and I'm like, fuck, I might have taken this a little bit too far. And like
It's good to have that self-realization.
yeah, I wish I'd had it a
Like,
bit sooner though.
why are they being like this? You're like, oh,
Yeah, it took a long time to come to grips with kind of, all right, listen, maybe, just maybe, there needs to be a bit of balance. It took me about 40 kgs extra weight and all my mates just disappearing. And what do you,
that's
and how do you find, sorry, just to jump off.
no, I get it. We were kind of spiraled.
I figured it would happen. That's why I didn't put a time slot on anything. So how do you find when it comes to like the differences in terms of how an organization is run between an org like Bravado, where we can assume it's a salary type org who's structured, run, everybody's got a role, versus orgs like your online kingdoms and stuff like that, who
Like,
are more just
you throw it back to like
the passionate orgs, the guys who don't do it, who are doing it just because this is what they want to do.
yeah. So that's probably one of the biggest differences, apart side obviously from the players as individuals compared to like the lower tier and the top tier. I would say the orgs make a huge difference. Obviously, I don't want to just be like BBD, but I hands down, like Bravado has like really shown me a side of what orgs can be, and being able to play under like a lot of different orgs in the country, everyone being all the different orgs kind of can like provide the team and players with their own kind of things. It was always one org had a gaming house, which was really cool, and or one org would give you shirts and something else, you know, like snacks or something, and you know, it was like all those kind of things, and you'd like it's so weird to go back then and be like, oh, this org does gaming shirts, and everyone gets so excited about that. And now like stepping into an org like Bravado, and then they're giving you two, and they're like, cool, is this enough, or do we need to do more? Like, you know, like, and it's for me, it's such a dynamic change, because at least I don't want to say like you don't feel motivated in like the lower tier orgs, but it feels like a hobby. It feels like
Yes.
a pastime. It feels like a cool, let's see what we can do as a team. Can we make this org proud? Can we do them a solid? Like, you're like, cool. But if it fails, you're like, is what it is. Move on to the next one. Make the new team. Try find the next kind of org that would be cool to pick us up.
Yeah,
See what they offer.
there's a lot less thought into what org you
Yeah.
play under at that level
Yeah,
versus
that level,
now.
it becomes team players,
Yeah.
shift, team players, and then yeah, it comes a lot less down to what the org can offer. It's just like, is it a cool looking org? Is it a cool avatar? You know, like, like that was me, dude. Like,
Dude, do you remember back in 2019 or 2018 that Lead Pro second team? They had like a new 5-man roster every week, and I felt like
they were getting kitted out.
Yeah,
Like that was the org at the time, dude.
it was.
We were like,
And
"Dang."
Oaks are willing to leave another team. Bro, these looks are gonna play for ESCA for me, dude. Like, what do you mean, bro? Like,
Yeah, they would pay for ECA
it's like,
and you
dude,
lose your mind.
Oaks will be leaving teams, and now, like, even at Terra, when I was building that Terra team, I mean, the orgs nicely run. The Oak tries his best,
Yeah.
genre, old new, but like, I find that every single player you're trying to recruit is like, so what does the org give? And I'm like, bro, we're in second div. What do you mean, what the fuck does the org give, bro? Like, what are you on about, dude? No org in second div is paying you shit. Like,
there has to be a realization of like what you can actually do to provide for the org and what the org can provide for you, and there has
Yeah.
to be a balance of interest and a balance of like realisticness. Like you can't be going into an org thinking you're gonna go overseas if you're in a second tier, if you're not even playing into the first div, you know,
dude.
like, and like well, not first div, but you know, like the best division in the
I'm not even gonna lie to you, dude. I could be wrong here, and you would probably have a better insights on this than I do. I am 99.999% sure that there's maybe 4 organizations in this country, maybe 4, that can actually realistically and sustainably afford to pay their players. Because
yeah, I think you are right with that.
Because I can't see, even so, take Bravado, right? I mean, you guys have some really good tier 1 sponsors, Alienware, Intel. Like, you can kind of understand that, okay, Bravado's been around since I was playing Call of Duty 4, dude. Like, it's
growing their brand.
So I can understand how, like, okay, so Bravado has enough money to pay players X. I don't know if the salary would be livable in terms of like sustainable enough where you can afford to rent your own place, pay for a car, things like that.
I don't think any org would realistically be able to do that.
Yeah, but I can understand. Yes, but even Bravado's monetization. So say now, and this is an example I'm going to use. I have no clue what Bravado pay their players, and I hold my hands up. I wouldn't want to know that publicly, and I don't think that should ever be made public.
Yeah, I won't be disclosing.
No, 100%, you should never.
Yeah.
But let's say it's 4,000 rand a month. All right, that's pretty close to minimum wage in South Africa for a day job, right?
Yeah.
That means that org is paying 20,000 rand a month to players, right? so if you think about that. Yeah,
I can tell you now that in 80k, I was earning around that mark.
Okay, so let's say, so you're paying 20,000 rand a month to your players. That's before you've paid any extra staff like coaches, managers, any social media marketing people you've got to hire for your social media marketing, any designers, things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, so how is an org that's not 80k who's got pretty good social media like numbers in terms of that they can sell, Bravado, like how are your lower tier orgs ever going to bring in 40,000 rand a month to be able to, you know what I mean? And then you still got to supply. It's
not realistic, because if you're taking salaries out of the equation, it's boot camps, it's traveling, it's accommodation, it's so much more like that comes down to it. It's for an org to properly call themselves like an established org, you need to be able to provide on so many fronts. And on all of those fronts I just listed now, there is very few. Very few. And it's crazy that there is like obviously there needs to be a somewhat forward progressive growth into more and more orgs, which I think there is sometimes a general shift towards, like you see orgs popping up. I mean, look at Nexa. That's already one that's popping up, and they're starting out to establish themselves properly in the scene.
But they are interesting because they seem to be a clothing brand that's opened up an organization. Because if you look at their stuff, they're from America. You know, I think that's more realistic in terms of okay.
Yeah, no, look, it's I don't think, and I think this is something that's probably been said over and over again, and it's obvious that like there's no ways an org is going to be making money realistically,
Dude,
unless they're like the top 2 orgs in the country off of their players. There is not a single org that's going to be making money.
So you hear that, you South African fucking players? Stop asking Oaks in first and second of what they're gonna give you, bro. You lucky if some Oak in the team is willing to pay for your ESCA.
Like more times than not, like 99% of the time, these orgs, like Bravado being one of them, they're not using us to make them money in any way, shape, or form. We're here to help them build their brand.
Yeah.
And they're there to help us build our brand under them, you know? So their whole purpose is to build us, and we help them build them. Money is not part of the equation.
Yeah.
Making money for each other, obviously there's salaries and that stuff,
of course,
whatnot. But the main focus behind it all is to build us as players in the org and build the org's name and the reach and just in general the org. Like if we're able to go and win a top tier competition, the name Bravado is being sent out everywhere, and that's what Bravado's aim is, not to go and make money.
I mean, things like you guys getting to the finals, and okay, granted you guys lost to average 15, but just having that name plastered makes a big difference.
It's a huge difference. It really is. That name just needs to be passed around by a few people, seen by a few names, like big figures, and it could be someone that wants to potentially invest. It can be someone that wants to potentially sponsor. It can be anything like that. But that's what reach and coverage gains, and that's what the orgs are actually after. And players need to realize that it needs to be an understanding and a balance of realisticness, as well as everyone being on the same page as to what's regarding what the org is aimed at doing. If it's still in the building and preparation phase of the org, or if it's in the full scale being able to fund players and all that stuff.
How many players do you think there are in South Africa whose name alone would be worth their salary? Because I can think of Black Poison, just because he's been around forever. He's fantastic at building a team that you know is going to win stuff. So who else?
Obviously, have your like huge names like that they've gone overseas. Like I personally, I don't know how you would say like worth their salary
in terms of to the organization. So not what they're going to bring in terms of players, but what they're going to bring in terms of just their name will be worth selling stuff on.
They're like super keen to pick up that player just because of the name of the player.
Because Sonic and Black Poison are really the only two.
Sonic, obviously, and Black Poison. I think obviously we can go to like JT and then. Like,
oh, true. Good, yeah, and TC.
TC, yeah.
Yeah, that's Bravado's probably biggest loss. He was part of Bravado forever, that coach, and he did a lot of groundwork here.
And it's crazy. He's still so ready and happy to help whenever he has free time.
Dude, that's crazy. There's something about that being said, there's something about that passion for the game, that where you just want to spend that time building your own understanding of the game, and it could be by helping people, and it could be by demos, just playing the game, I suppose.
Yeah, it comes in so many different like ways. Like I remember when I first started, it was all about aim, do this, do that, just like headless chicken with a gun, you know. And it's weird how my kind of career has taken such a huge shift. Like this last, like obviously with DNMK, I took up the IGL role for the first time after being like a proper like entry, like my entire career. Literally my entire career until after ATK was entry. And then I think I got put into a lurkish kind of role in DNMK when I initially joined, and then I eventually took over the IGL role, and then I kind of became that kind of support role player. And then leading into Bravado, I went hard support player for like the whole year. So and like it's crazy. I would go from hating to do demos and going in now to practice my utility and things like that, and I go now and I can go and get lost for like 2 to 3 hours on a offline with bots, just trying to find a smoke that I think could be cool. You know, it's like it's a weird dynamic shift, like when your mind kind of just unlocks every like it's so strange. You can't like say you explain it to somebody and then they're like aha, but like there's a moment every time in someone's career, and it happens multiple times, where like you kind of click and then you just go, oh, like in so like it could be like in just a certain strand or in a certain map or like a certain area of a map or a concept as a whole of like anything, but like it's really important when those players get those aha moments, those clicks, when they realize and will understand a perspective that they really dwell into those kind of perspectives, try and like expand it, rip it open, see how much further they can take it. That in itself might unlock another understanding, another perspective they never saw of the game that unlocks something further, and it's just a constant
Bro.
spiral.
I mean, that's true. And how hard did you find, on that note of aha moments, how many could you put down and remember off the top of your head in your career, from when you first picked up Counter-Strike through your different teams?
I would say, like I say, a big figure in my past would definitely be Ninjask. He would sit down a lot with me and the team, and I would ask him questions and things, and he just kind of, for me, he felt like a god figure, because he was originally like, I was sub or something for my previous team, and then one of those players left and he joined the team and became IGL, and it was like a godsend. I loved it, and just the way he thought, and like everything was so like methodical and well thought out, and every time he would like the way he explained practices and stuff like that. So I think that was definitely one of the biggest first aha moments, like being able to, he kind of properly, like for me, I think up until that point I was still just playing kind of like MMs with better communication.
Yeah.
That's kind of what like teams at that level was at that time. And I then obviously kind of stepped up, and then that was like my kind of like my online kingdom era. So it like was a bit better of an advancement, still like very low down, but like it was a better advancement compared to, I think it was like Berserk Raw Academy. That was my first team. That was
Yo!
that was it.
Yes, that's right.
It's a mouthful, but yeah, like that definitely. So yeah,
That's a good
like
name that goes
online
back.
kingdom, like law esports days. That was with Ninjask was definitely my first aha, kind of just understanding the game. I would say a next big one would probably have been when I transitioned into. For me, like WG was a very good experience and learning thing. Playing under like RMP and CO and stuff like that obviously unlocked a lot more of understanding. But for me, I felt like I was still in the very all aim, no brain kind of part of my career. Everything was about how well I could shoot, and I could like use that to make up for my lackluster communication or my
Understanding of the
mentality
game.
or understanding. Yeah. And then I think then the big one for me was definitely when I got it was a weird stint. I left WG, and then I got picked up to what we were called, the Big Five at the time, before they disappeared. I joined Big Five with Slowy and Tuckbork and um, Connie Trevor at the time. So that was like craziness to me. Like I was losing my mind. Like I think it was Tianki. He like messaged me and he was like, "Yo, we want to do some trials. We're looking for a player, and we saw you like just left WOG or whatever." Um,
I
and
fucking
I was
love
like,
Tian.
"Dude, Tianki, what a man."
Fucking dude, I go way back with Tian. We go back to 2009. Playing COD 4, we used to make mixed teams and just jam all the time.
Yeah, I know. He's been such a prominent figure throughout the scene. Like everyone knows him.
What's he actually doing now? Has he fully retired, or is he still?
Honestly, I can't say. I think he might, if he hasn't retired. I don't think he's officially retired or anything like that. But I think he might just be chilling out, or maybe subbing for teams or something. I've
Feel
been
like
super disconnected this holiday from any team shuffles or rosters.
I have a feeling that he would be somebody who brings a lot of value to pretty much and just I think there's a lot of teams who are in that all aim no brain phase of the game, and having somebody like Tian who's been around for a while with experience, that would be valuable.
Yeah, it could potentially help those players break out of that.
Yeah,
mindset. Yeah, definitely.
Question is he up to that kind of?
Yeah, probably not.
That's not. It's not fun to play with people who are all about aim.
It's like becoming a coach. I mean, you have to have that kind of passion for it. It's not just going to be something you can just do. You're going to want to drive yourself nuts.
And how easy would you say it is the path to get from, let's say, a second div team to a Prem/Masters team? What would you say is a reasonable time frame for somebody who's young and eager?
Yeah.
And
it comes down to so many variables here, because like I can say, if we go back to when I like see it, it's kind of like the golden era. But it was when I was like in my WRG, it was like not really the golden era, but like it was like a really like a crazy contention for top, or at least not top, but like there was a lot more teams in that top 4, top 5 bracket that I felt like anyone could win on any given day, no matter what happened. Sorry. And then it goes through random stages where those teams just die and the orgs kind of just disappear. And I feel like those gaps in the scene when a lot of new players can kind of get sniped when they're quite young, like when they've maybe given a year into the game, they've been playing some facets, they've been playing some pugs, or whatever it is, getting involved in the scene in some way, shape, or form. Their names will start kind of popping up, and then they'll be like, cool, we're like in the need for players. Like there's been quite a few times since WG to now where the scene's gotten not quiet, but like there's just like there was no like real proper big competition always. It was always like maybe like the top 2 teams, maybe the top 3 teams, but it was always kind of dead otherwise. And then you would need new blood and new players. So like for me, like you could get lucky in that regard, but if I have to be realistic and take those factors out of it, I think it could easily just be like 2 years of like consistent grind of like a young player, like constantly getting your name out there, and ultimately getting lucky has like quite a big part of doing it. Like obviously you can try and work as hard as you can and you will get noticed for that, but sometimes you can just be in the right place at the right time and
know the right person.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a big thing in South Africa. Like a lot of teams are built off of who you know, not just
and those teams crash and burn hard.
Sadly,
they just don't work, unfortunately, because there'll always be someone's chum with this guy, but now they're not really vibing with that guy, so now let's kick him and get this guy in, and it just I feel like if you're able to get 5 like-minded individuals who are all eager just to grow and build themselves up individually, and doing that with a solid group of guys who have no ill intent, no snaky kind of malicious attitudes, or like any of that kind of just emotion in teams, it's just toxic and it's just destructive. It's just not it. And I think just having a solid team with everyone is just there to win. Everyone's there to get better, and everyone's there with the same mind. It's honestly, it's harmony. I can't explain it.
So on the topic of team dynamics and building teams, kind of, how do you guys at the level of bravado and stuff decide on roster moves? Because I imagine you've got contracts locking players in. Things can become a lot more complicated in terms of, so now obviously you guys have lost 2 players and you've picked up 2 players. How does that whole thing come about, and how does that happen? You don't have to be oddly specific in terms of like,
yeah, no, I'll be
this
pretty
is,
vague.
we kicked Josh because Josh is a prick. He's not. Josh is amazing. He's such a sweet dude. I love Josh.
I love Josh so much.
But like, you get what I'm saying. Like, it's that, like, how's the difference in terms of making a roster move?
Ultimately, I guess. So obviously, everyone like with like a team like Bravado, it's a lot simpler, I'd say. Everyone at the beginning of the year has a set goal of what we want to achieve. Everyone has a clear idea of what everyone wants from the year, what Bravado want from the year, because like we were speaking on earlier, the difference between lower tier orgs and the top tier orgs, when you're in a top tier org and you're earning a salary and you're getting the benefits and all that kind of stuff, you become a lot more attached. You become a lot more, I need to do this for them, and not just being like, if we do win, it's cool for them. If we lose, it is what it is. They go again. Now it's like, I want to be that team. I want to be the player in the team that does it for them, you know? So having that, like, I kind of got sidetracked. What was the original question again?
How do you go about making roster moves in terms of?
Oh yeah, so like I said, everyone's kind of on the same page in the beginning of the year, what the goals are, what everyone wants, and halfway through the year, 3/4 through the year, you can get checkpoints where you can kind of just gauge, cool, are we getting what we're getting done, what we wanted to get done, what are we achieving, what are the results, how is the team doing, all those kind of things. And you just kind of have checkups and checkpoints, and that's kind of obviously something like the management or something would do, because they want their team to succeed, they want the team to do what we set out to do, and if it's not what's going to happen, then obviously changes are going to be made. Then captains or the IGL would be approached by probably the management, and it would be a thing of like, yo, okay, this is the case, we need to do this XYZ. What should we do about how do we fix this? Talks will happen, people will discuss things, and then yeah, ultimately you come down to discuss a thing with the management of the org, and then the system goes. It's like a very, like, most of the time it's a very transparent
Process.
the process. It's just people are made aware, boom boom, this is the scenario, cool, we're looking at going with potentially these players.
And then this, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. I understand this kind of falls a little bit in an awkward place.
Yeah.
But now you sign a contract for how long? Let's say a year or 2 years.
Yeah.
Do they wait out your contract length before you're kind of, so like, Senna, I imagine the decision that you were going to be an RGL came before the roster moves came about. So let's say you were, I would assume you were involved in deciding who gets picked up, right? So yeah. South Africa has you to thank for reuniting the brothers. Yeah. But let's say they come to you and they're like, okay, well, we want to drop player X and player Y. Or you say, okay, I would like to get rid of player Y. And they're like, okay, but he's still got a year left on his contract, so that's not doable. Or is that kind of...
So from like all the orgs pretty much that I've been in that have had these kind of contracts, like with proper like repercussions and stuff like that, more times than not, it's like a super relaxed, transparent like conversation that will happen with the org. There's normally a lot of clauses and stuff in the contracts, whereas it would state like, if there's like an agreement amongst the org or the players, like I think I've had that in like all of my contracts in my old orgs, where like if there was an agreement amongst the contract can become like void, and like you can go on, like yeah. Normally it's like handled within pretty chilled.
Okay. Now I have another question for you that's going to be potentially hard for you to answer, I think.
Yeah.
So how scary is that moment when you know contracts are coming near the end, or like you could be on the chopping block, but there's not many orgs in South Africa who can pay you a salary? How do you deal with that fear, I suppose? And because I imagine that makes people, money changes people, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, money definitely changes people, but I think I think mainly if the most thing that people would be motivated by money-wise is potentially like a really good player that is getting approached by 2 or 3 different orgs, and they bump his salary or benefits or maybe something like that in order to trying to like get him to join them. But ultimately, it is pretty daunting. I mean, it's never fun. Uh, more times than not, I guess I've just been pretty fortunate in I had a pretty clear like idea of what I wanted to do when making the decisions of leaving teams or stuff like that. Or already having like options and a new route already like in line for like.
So you're not worried about that money just drying up kind of thing?
Yeah, so fortunately, like there obviously have been times and stuff like that, but more times than not, I think everyone that's in the scene and earning a salary doesn't really. Well, I guess I can't really say for everyone, but more times than not, you wouldn't really be relying on that money to live off, like not live off of, but like if you didn't have that income, you would
Yeah.
be like you're like screwed over, and you can't live properly, and you have to make changes to your life and stuff like that.
The money is not big enough that it's a crux of your survival.
Exactly, it's a thing of if you don't have it now, like okay, I have to sell my PC and things like that. I think everyone that's kind of involved, or more so that are involved, like the money is just like incentive to motivate and keep the players in line, in check, make sure everyone's doing what we need to be doing, and things like that. That's more so where that kind
Makes
of comes
sense.
from. Yeah.
Because I would say it's what CSGO players at the top are using to buy skins, but 90% of oaks are sponsored by some, well, one of two people in the scene, you know? Like, I mean, let's...
Crazy, yeah. People saw Marcus and they've just been jumping. I mean, it's great. It's cool. I mean, they're growing in some way, in some form.
Yeah, that's true. How would you say the lower tier orgs could improve what they offer players? And I'm sorry. And can I help you?
What a cutie, dude.
Yeah, he was abused and shit. So when he walks past, you kind of see, like, you can see his ribs and stuff on the side. He's super thin. So the landlord took him in, and now he just lives on our floor pretty much. He comes through here.
Adorable.
He's adorable, but he's, yeah. Anyway, so how would you say that in the difference between, obviously we've kind of gone over the differences in terms of lower tier orgs to the higher tier orgs. What would you say is a nice path for the lower tier orgs to make their org a little bit more fundamentally sound and better? And how could it make the experience for players better without having to shell out 40,000 rand a month kind of thing? Like, what could the org itself do?
I think maybe like there could be like more ways the org could reach out. I feel like more than financial. Obviously, there's a large focus on financially. How can in some way like a monetary kind of reimbursement for their time? It's always what it's looked at, and unfortunately, I think that is a lot of people's driving force to actually play the game and stuff like that, which is honestly maybe a way to kind of whittle the people out, because ultimately like I could say now that like if I wasn't earning a salary, I probably wouldn't be playing CS competitively, at least. Maybe like like here and there I'll play a game or something like that, but I know realistically I'll get, like I said, I'll give it a month or two and that itch is going to start going again, and I'll be playing it because it's a game that I have a passion for, and it's a game I've dumped over 8k hours in, and it's going harder. It's still going, it's not stopping anytime soon. So
The money isn't what keeps you around. It's just,
no, I can say that it is, and like it's obviously very easy for me to say it's not when I am receiving that amount of money. But
fair.
like for me, ultimately in the lower tier, monetary and like gain and advantages and stuff really shouldn't be the focus of any kind of team or players in lower tier orgs. It's rough to say, and I think a lot of people might disagree on that, but it's for me it seems redundant in regards to, yeah, maybe you can earn, okay, cool, everyone earns $200 a month, let's say. That's a K a month on the org, a lot more manageable than 40K.
Yeah, I mean, true, but still.
Yeah, but like realistically, I feel like even that's a bit excessive. I still feel like an org offering to pay everyone's ESEA subs every month is something that would be hugely appreciated by people that actually would take that and like want to use it and make use of it. Maybe they don't have the $50 every month to dump into ESEA, but if they play for this org, they do, and then they can participate in the ESEA leagues. They can actually start being in like active in that part of the community, and then grow themselves to potentially get into a new org, into better teams, into a point where they get to a salary earning team, And I feel like it shouldn't be the main motivator to try and aim to get into the top teams, to just get like a nice salary and all the benefits that come alongside it. Obviously it's very nice and it's a huge like factor and a motivator, but ultimately the fact that people are so strung up in the lower tier orgs about what they can receive from the org shows me a lot that that's what their focus is on, a lot more than what they can do as a team to try and better themselves individually, to get to a point where they can be in a team where they're getting offered stuff and not where they have to try and pry and request things out of them,
The fact that people are willing to just drop a team that might do something, and by something I mean, hell, maybe you qualify for main or finish top 8 at intermediate. That's something where I guarantee you 90% of the teams in main, when they're looking for players, are like, okay, well, let's have a look at who finished where in top of intermediate, and we can start to see, okay, these players are obviously doing stuff. I've seen this open a pug.
Well, I can give like a good example of like, if a low tier team, right, or low tier org, let's say, has a random stint, and then maybe a team or a name of an org that like top tier players read, or not necessarily top tier, but near the top tier, just below, would read that name and be like, like it is what it is kind of thing. I wouldn't just personally play for them, or they're nothing great or something like that. It doesn't spark any like, whoa, it's that org. As soon as that org goes and maybe has a crazy stint of a leg and goes and qualifies for main or advanced or whatever, that team, that name of that org, it all changes and shifts, whether people want to like admit it or not. Subconsciously, that presence of that org becomes more powerful, in a sense of, oh, I've seen them in advanced. It's not bad to to represent them. Like, I wouldn't mind playing for that team. They've been here, they played in here.
Yeah.
They obviously have like that ability. Like, cool, let's do that. And then that's how the org will grow itself in general. I mean, if that team, I want to say, like, let's say Viben as an example,
I think that's a good.
They were like a pretty chilled org, nothing like too crazy, nothing like out of the world, like top this or top that or something like that. But like, I think they were like a name like top team players would hear and they would be like, oh yeah, like they're pretty cool. But
They've
like,
been around, yeah.
They would be looking for a better org to like try and join if they're out of a team. Now all of a sudden, you take Viben and you look at them and they're like a huge name in the scene. I'm seeing them on Twitter constantly, the updates, the artworks, their media coverage, their team, like the competing with the top teams consistently. Everything is just taking a huge like upgrade. And look at the players in the team of Viben now. You go back to when they first initiated, it was probably like a few lower tier players. Now you got some huge names playing for that, like not huge, but like some big,
well-known players,
good, well-known players that can definitely take that team to the like easily, consistently compete.
They do something that I feel a lot of lower tier teams don't do enough of. Like, I feel like a lot of lower tier teams or organizations, not teams, let me be a bit more specific, don't do enough in terms of content creation and social media work. And I feel like just once a week sitting down with your players, or
doing like a fun Q&A thing, or mini games. So
if you are an organization out there and you can afford to pay your players $200 a month, right, and cover maybe their ESEA or Faceit subs, do yourself a favor. In return, request that your players be involved and shoot a video once a month or once a week or something like that. I swear I am 100% sure your organization will outgrow every other organization around you.
And players are keen to do that as well. They want to get their faces out there. They want to get their names grown, and that's ways to do it. And necessarily, like, maybe they're in an org and then they do that and they find they have a very like generally humorous sense, like, personality, and maybe they go big into something else like streaming or making their own brand. That's how all that kind of stuff starts, and that's why players would be down to do that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, there are people that
there's always players that don't want to do that kind of stuff.
They're just there to do what they need to do, and otherwise they can go and do what they want to do.
But on that note, right, what would you say, like, how let me not ask that I think that would be really bad, but how do you think players in that lower levels could improve, right? Just to jump around a little bit here.
How they could improve?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of basic things I can say that I think probably almost everyone's heard, either from asking someone from the top tier or watching YouTube videos or something, and it's always like the basic: do your VODs, watch demos of pro teams, be consistent. And you hear, like, it's always just kind of the same words, and everyone's like, oh, true, that's a good idea, I should do that, and then never really end up getting around doing it. Something I found that really, really helped me individually was finding a proper workshop map that I found comfortable. It doesn't necessarily have to be the best workshop map out there that all the pros are using, that will make you amazing if you use it for 1,000 hours. Like,
they all do the same thing, and
at some essence. The same thing, and you have to. Ultimately, it comes down to what you're comfortable with and what you find. I know, like, a lot of people, but it comes down to personal preference, and it really does. You have to test and feel. There's nothing wrong with being guided into doing it, but ultimately, no one's going to be able to find that comfort for you, because only you can feel that comfort. And so
I know it was a basic question, but
yeah,
it is one that even going back to 2018 came up all the time. Oh, you went to LAN. What can I do to get better? Bro, like, I went to LAN.
To a big org.
I went to some Pete Pompey's LAN down the road. Yeah, it's not the same thing, man.
Yeah, it's...
Oh, no.
And it's always the classic. People just want to, like, know how to do it the fastest with the least amount of work. And it's just...
Yeah.
You have to face it up, and just, it's honest, hard grind.
There's no fast solutions here, people.
Unless you're extremely talented and you pick up the game like simple.
Yeah, but then you're just gonna get accused of cheating, and the scene's gonna blackball you. So don't be too good, but be good. And then, sorry, to go back to the content side of things, what do you think is missing? And this is gonna be, I think this is a pretty interesting question. What do you think is missing on the periphery of our scene in Counter-Strike? So, like, casters, designers, video editors, content creators in Counter-Strike in South Africa. What do you think is missing on the outside of just a player in an organization? It could be coaches.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to a lot. Ideally, talking about, like, in general, like, also something actually we can talk about it recently. I think it was lately that tweeted about it, that he's getting, like, a whole group of people together that, like, are down to, like, not even, like, properly cast, but at least stream games and stuff like that. And if any teams want their game to be broadcasted, or if there's a big game or something, that game and schedule will be sent through to them, and then someone can pick it up and just do it. Like, that's the steps that we need, and it's super progressive, because ultimately I feel like it's, again, comes down to a money kind of thing. And obviously, with the times the worlds are in, especially like SA and stuff like that, focusing on your main job and source of income already is difficult enough. So being able to actually put aside time to just making a video edit of a team because you felt like it, because it was like your passion, becomes a lot more difficult. So it's tough to say, oh, people should just be making more videos, or people should just be going and casting and stuff. But ultimately, it comes down to it being a passion thing. If that's going to be your passion, if that's going to be something you want to end up maybe making your main career, or something you want to get under your name to be able to say at the end of your life, okay, cool, I went and did that, then you have to go and be selfish and super selfless about it until you make it. And then once you're maybe recognized, picked up by an org, you get paid for what you're doing, then obviously you can go crazy with it. But yeah, it becomes difficult. I think we're missing all of the above on all the things you missed. We have a very, very select few casters, very, very few, that can actually properly sit down and cast a game and keep an attention of an audience. It's something that's been mentioned, but it's a huge gap in the market at the moment for people that want to get onto the production and side of things like that. I think you can earn, taking money into consideration again, I think if you can actually do a decent job at it and grow yourself and grow your brand, I think you shouldn't struggle at all in the scene.
It's actually why I wanted to do an interview. So this podcast is going to be around for a while, and it's not strictly going to be Counter-Strike related, but this is where I come from. I mean, this is where I'm from, man. Like, I've played Counter-Strike for years. I might not be playing anymore, but it's still a part of my life, I suppose. And I figured, like, I knew you, and figured this would be a good start to it. I feel like there's a lot of things that are missing, and coaches was another one I found.
Oh yeah, I mean, even us, we're looking for an EU coach at the moment, going through a few interviews and trials and stuff like that. Just because
the fact that you're one of the top 3, let's just say 3, probably top 2 teams in the country, and you cannot find a coach locally.
I think it's the fact that we are the top 3. I feel like if you take it out, that like we make us anything below top 5, I think you could easily get any maybe top player or player that's played in the top tier for a bit to get into coach. But to be able to actually properly coach us at this point in time, there's not going to be anyone worth to pay that doesn't already probably let any one of us already know. Like that knowledge is vital, and I think you're gonna have, for us to actually take the next steps forward and to unlock the new understanding, like I was saying earlier, we need someone entirely out of our perspective to give us that view that we just don't have. And I think we can watch demos on it over and over and over again, but it can just take explaining from one perspective to completely alter the way you look at it.
Would you say that there's only so good you can get skill-wise at the game, right? Like, okay, cool, there's players who are slightly more skilled, but you're talking about 3-5% better, actually just pure aim mechanically. But the place you get the bigger difference is on like someone's ability to explain and break down a situation and be like, listen, yeah, I understand that you thought it was the right play to make the swing here, and cool, you got the frag, but realistically, if you'd held back and waited another 5 seconds, you probably bait out the person's utility.
Had his aim not bailed him out in that situation, it could have been a lot worse. But that's like something I've always felt, and something I've always promoted in general. Like it's super sick to have a crazy fragger who can always just pop off and go absolutely mental. But something I've always said is like, if that player doesn't pop off and he's having an off day, what else can he provide the team other than just kind of like being more like an anchor, if that makes sense? So like it's rough to say, but like if that person doesn't know how to communicate, he doesn't know how to suggest things. If he's not going, guys, I'm not having a great game, let me jump corners for you and just trade me. Like if he can't have that realization, if he can't go, cool, I'm not having a good game, just let me be util bot. Give me your flashes and smokes and stuff. I'll send you guys in and set you guys up for stuff. Like it takes that kind of a deeper understanding as a player for me, and I've always like kind of pushed for. I would rather have a player that's maybe not so cracked in the aim streets, but can tell me why he does every single thing he does when he plays. And if you can, there's so many players I feel like in the scene where you can make plays and you can go back to them in the demo and go, okay, well, why did you do this? And they'll just go like, I don't know, just felt like it. There's no thought behind the play, and it's a huge issue.
On that note, would you be looking for a coach who's going to explain things to you guys, or be able to sit down with you guys after the game and be like, okay, well, let's go over why each play here was made, and then let's see if we can come to
a very important thing for me about a coach is someone who isn't going to go and try and change our style. So he isn't going to go and clash with what I intend to do with the team, as well as he needs to make sure that they're able to, like, I want them to see what we do. If it fails, I want him to be able to explain to me as like from how he understands the game and interprets the round. I want him to be able to tell me it failed because of X, Y, and Z. I think next time you guys should just try doing this, and the way he will explain how he wants to implement it, the way he suggests we implement it, the way he explains to us why what we're doing isn't working and why what he wants us to do would make what we're trying to do better. And like all of those things come down to it, and it's just the way someone can explain something, and like it becomes a teacher, and like that's why I guess there would be a coach in the first place, but they'd need to be able to teach us properly.
Yeah, so it's more just you're looking for someone to correct the mistakes that you guys aren't spotting in terms of
someone who can pick up on our tendencies, see what mistakes we're making, micro adjustments that need to be made, bigger picture things that we're maybe not understanding, and kind of just someone to help us view the game differently.
That's because I'm always curious, because as an in-game leader, I wanted a coach who could just, when things went wrong, I could sit down with and be like, okay, look, I don't understand how we lost this round from a 4v3. We had a man up. Where did things go wrong? Like, what can we find here? Instead of anti-stratting a team, figuring out, okay, was it that Jono misstepped and gave away his life easily, and then from there it was just we were worked out, or yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So you guys, how many coaches do you reckon there are in South Africa?
I think it's a big market. I think it's a very open market. I don't think there are many orgs though that all. I guess there are definitely. I mean, look, Slowly is a good example of someone who's done coaching and stuff like that. And I know there's been quite a few players in the scene that have actually made use of his coaching services, and you can see an improvement. But it's again trying to find a balance between how much you feel like your time is worth as a player outside of your already like
busy schedule.
Yeah. Because I mean, look, ideally, like most times, are not people trying to be coached around about the time you're in practice, and
yes.
So like it never really works out that way. So ideally, you have to kind of find how much you're worth. You feel like how much you could per hour of your time is, if you even have the time, and on top of it, you have to find people that are willing to pay what you feel like you're worth. So it could be. It's a lot of factors that unfortunately you can't as an individual control. So like I would say we need more coaches, but at the same time, I don't think the standard of our scene really offers the greatest tier of coaches. I think we have some excellent players and great players, but I don't think they will make great coaches just because of their inability to properly explain
And
fundamentals and perspectives. Yeah.
how open do you think the scene would be to somebody who has a reasonably good fundamental understanding of the game, but who didn't have the physical capabilities to implement?
I think those players are vital. It's kind of like an analyst role.
Yeah.
Where they're not really a great pro player themselves, but they're really good at picking up on tendencies. They could be a brainiac. It's like it could be brains of a bronze. A combination of all those kind of like heads together is crazy. It's so cool, and that's kind of like what I would also kind of want in a coach. Is like an analyst kind of vibe as well.
I hear you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I think I can end it on this. Right. 2022 was a crazy year for you, from getting to play international teams. So give me your biggest highlights and your worst lowlights of 2022.
Yeah.
I can tell you what your biggest lowlights of 2023 was: the fact that you had to spend a week at a B&B because your car's bust.
Well, unfortunately, the B&B wasn't bad. It was quite nice. So it wasn't terrible, but yeah, it was pretty ass. I wanted to get back and get on the grind. But probably a highlights would probably have been that a good moment would have been that I think it was the Thursday, the first day of Comic-Con, or whenever we had our upper bracket final against Nixa, and we had beaten them in the BO3. I think that was a really cool moment. It was some like super close games, super hype. The emotions were over the moon, and then we had that, and then I think we had like a few days to just chill until the final. So it was like a huge celebration. Like it was like kind of something. It was like the thing we had been building. It was like, obviously I could just say the low light there right after was losing to them.
I mean, yeah, final, that wasn't
which was rough.
Good way to end the weekend.
But ultimately, yeah, it was something like we had worked towards and we're preparing in boot camps and stuff towards, and then it was tiring and there was a lot of work that we had put in, and to go on that day and then beat them, and then it was like felt like it paid off. It was like in the moment, it was like probably definitely a highlight. It quickly shattered thereafter, but I would probably still say the lowlights would cause I wouldn't even want to say it was the Intel Africa, because like we definitely should have beaten them in a team dynamic wise. They really it really wasn't anything crazy. It was definitely on us to have beaten them. They really did nothing special, and we played into their hands like more times than not. We just weren't able to punish their mistakes, and they like take apart our mistakes and every overstep, every overpeak. Because those and that comes down to like their mechanics as individuals. Like I said to like my teammates, I was jiggle peeking corners and I was getting one tapped on jiggle peaks that I've done for years in SA that like no one touches me on. And so like I could feel the difference in them as players from playing from, because I believe they play straight into European Face It, and they're all like level 10. Face it, so it just because of the region that they are from and stuff like that, it shouldn't be like taken any lightly. But at the same time, it definitely isn't any excuse for us not having won that. But yeah, so that's why I definitely think that would be the low line.
That's a pretty rough one though.
It was rough. That was the one we definitely wanted to bring home, not only for us but for like Bravado in general. SA in general.
The whole SA.
Like because it wasn't a thing of even, it was just we weren't just representing UD or representing SA. It was a lot bigger than anything else we had really been doing.
It's quite scary though, because South Africa's scene is so small, and I know like we've probably got 100 teams in total if you look at like how many people are just playing competitively. But
Yeah.
if we don't get those opportunities to play at that international level, I mean, look at Nexa against Maus and them. Like, they didn't play any realistically Mickey Mouse teams, if you know what I mean, either. And it's like, I personally feel like the players in South Africa are better than what ended up happening with Nexa and them. But it's this adjustment period where unless you get time playing at that high level, you don't actually get to adjust in terms of you got to kind of get used to where you're playing. And I feel like South Africa has the players to have a top. I'm not going to be ridiculous here and say like the best team in the world, but like, but we could have a top 20 team in the world. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah, like
there's a few teams.
Roster.
Yeah.
I definitely do agree.
I just feel like
I don't think it's unrealistic. I think it's a journey. I don't think it's something that's just gonna happen.
No.
I mean, look at ATK currently and stuff like that, and obviously we can't obviously there's still a South African or with South African players in it. But it's a mix now, and like obviously it kind of like cuts away from the full SA roster being a team playing into those kind of regions. So I definitely don't think it's unrealistic, but at the same time, I still think it's going to take a while for us to.
What do you think we actually need? Because I don't seem to believe that us sending teams to America is the solution, because we've now seen it twice. There's something about the USA doesn't seem to quite be working.
No, I think the US scene in general is just a bit in a question mark. It definitely isn't what it used to be. And obviously that was like pre-COVID era and stuff like that. So ultimately, like you can't really come down. Like I can't really criticize it all too much in regards to like what ATK has been able to accomplish and things. But I think if the scene was a lot more thriving, I think SA teams would have maybe done a bit better. I mean, look at a really good example would have been the Bravado project. I mean, they went really far, played in the DreamHack, and like took some rounds off of some big names. Like it wasn't like any crazy result, but ultimately it was a huge result. Actually, what should I say? It was a big win for like SA in general. Getting the Bravado stickers on like the Steam store in general for like to have it on your gun was
those prices are still crazy, dude.
It's like 800 rand now. It's like okay, a sticker.
Jesus. Yeah. So how many do you actually have on your guns?
I'm borrowing an AK that's like fully decked out with them.
Bravado, that's what you need to supply your players, bro. Just BVD stickers for a month, dude. Everybody gets all their guns loaded up, dude.
It's just gonna be a scheme. Everyone's gonna buy them out, and then they're gonna become super expensive.
100%. That's the way it goes. So, what can we expect from you in 2023 with Bravado?
Well, myself, I feel a lot more comfortable in this kind of role when I'm in control. Not per se like micromanaging everyone, but I feel like I have I'm a lot more comfortable knowing what the team is doing, when we're doing it, what we're gonna be doing, and that kind of activates me as an individual. And I think I'm gonna be kind of leaning away a bit more from this kind of supporty role that I've been kind of getting myself into, and getting a bit more into my fragging department, which I think is going to kind of relight my fire, because I wasn't at all impressed with my individual performance throughout 2022. I don't think my role really allowed for me to do too much outside of what I had to do, but it was still like it came down to a lot of individualness, and like if I had been a bit better in some scenarios with my aim, I could have made it. It's a lot of hindsight, but I think for me this year is to kind of just do quite a 180 from what I was doing this last year, and kind of try and cement my name up there with the boys.
And what would make 2023 a success for your team this year?
Nothing but first, literally nothing with the team, and then the names behind behind me in general. It'll be a shame if we aren't, to be honest.
The best team in the country, hands down.
Who
do you think's going to be your biggest rivals?
It's quite an interesting year. I'm quite excited. There's quite a few names. I don't think all the rosters have actually made any announcements other than ESEA pages, which we've gotten to maybe have a little sneak peeks at. So I can't really say. I'm not actually even certain about all of the roster shuffles and roster changes. But I can imagine. I think it's going to be a hotly contested year.
And
from what I've heard and what I've seen, without too much, because obviously, like I said, no one's really done any announcements and things. But from what I've gathered and seen and my teammates and stuff, it looks like it's gonna be a really juiced up, spicy year for everyone, which is quite cool.
And do you think there's going to be enough events in South Africa going forward to keep or to progress CS:GO further?
It comes down to, for me, it's consistency of these events. If we can continuously keep popping these out, and maybe every year every few years introducing another one or another two, making it so there's another extra LAN compared to just it being 2 or 3 or something like that. I think as long as we keep doing that, I think we'll definitely get to a point where, look at Intel Africa Masters. If that's a new thing that's going to be coming out more and more often, that's just giving the scene more opportunity to play against 15 average gang, other players from other Africans, and then eventually even bigger potentially. So yeah, I'm hopeful. I think the load shedding schedule, in general, obviously is something we've spoken about 1,000,001 times, but that is obviously a huge question mark in regards to people wanting to invest into the scene in general and competitions and stuff.
How do you find scheduling your practices and that kind of thing with load shedding? It's got scheduling a game is just impossible, but how do you schedule your practice?
It's pretty much become a point of 4 out of 5 players in your team have to have some kind of backup power source in order to play, even during downtimes. If you need to play at a top tier, it comes I think throughout this last year we saw how disruptive and damaging it is just to not be able to consistently practice, be able to consistently play your games. Literally, there was a period in this last year where we couldn't get any practice in, and almost every single game was just an official after an official after an official, because things were so scheduled and pushed back and pushed forward and stuff like that. So yeah, it's crazy. It really is. It feels chaotic. And you just really gotta hope for the luck of the draw that you guys have the better times than the other team, I guess. But ultimately, it's rough because it's going to have to be a time of all the teams and all the players kind of have to understand the situation, and everyone's going to have to be accommodating for everyone. It can't be this thing of spiteful teams, because it's going to ruin us. It's going to be forfeit after forfeit, and there's not going to be proper leagues or proper results or anything like that.
I think a lot of people would rather finish 4th in a shitty way than finish where they should finish out in the group stages. I think that there's a lot of people who would rather just be out for number 1 instead of trying to do what's best for the scene.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that one.
And
it's super damaging.
It's quite sad, actually. If you were to compare your practices, actually, because you brought up practice, and I'm curious, at the high level, South African high level, what is your practice in terms of how does practice happen versus at the low level? Because when we would do map work, we would everyone comes on 15 minutes, then our practice starts at 7, everyone's on at quarter to 7, shooting bots or whatever. Then we would spend an hour, let's go over the map. these are some things I would like to do in a default today, and then move on to like a scrim or something. How do you
I think
structure?
that's something that's very similar. That pretty much sounds like a carbon copy of more times than not that what my practices would entail. Meet before everyone has the map with the IGL kind of going over, showing everyone's roles, given some time to go and practice the util and everything that was done. Everyone gets some time to warm up before your scrims, and you go into scrims and you practice what you've gone over in your theory session.
Okay.
But I think what makes the biggest difference is actually just individuals. If I take myself, even in lower tier teams, my focus was horrendous. I would like know the general idea of the strat, but I wouldn't have zoned out that I was meant to throw it at this time and this timing, and then I would fuck that up in a scrim. And then I wouldn't be able to, and then I would get like not shouted at, but like ridiculed, and then I have to fix it, and then I take my teams now, and what I've been in recently, it's a lot more. Everyone is activated, everyone is attentive, everyone is suggesting, everyone is bringing stuff. It's not one big difference actually. Now I realize it was always an IGL would go and be tasked with mace setting and sorting out the practice, making everyone's roles, making all the defaults, making all the strats, and everything like that. Whereas in these top teams, it's really cool to see when like you obviously get your feet, just rock up, do what you want to do, what they like, the bare minimum of what they need to do, go play the scrims, boom, go off, and they go and play and do whatever else they need to do, or whatever they go and end up doing. And then you get like if like your players that come and bring, oh, I saw this while I was watching a demo, this could be useful for you in your position. It could be a teammate on the other side of the map, it could be a default, it could be a tool, or just a single flash or something like that. And let's say 3 people bring 2 things each, all of a sudden you have like 6 pieces of util tools that anyone can use or make use of that I didn't even go and bring, and that's on top of my practice that I sorted out, you know. So that's like I noted.
That's huge. And how detail orientated are things at that master's prem level versus like in terms of like flash timings and
big,
like
the way a singular smoke can mean so much more to a team in top tier compared to a team in low tier. If I heard a random smoke went and bloomed on a certain part of the map, I would have been like, huh? Like back in the day, I wouldn't even think twice. Now you drop it and 4 people are busy talking and suggesting why that smoke's landed there. You know, like it's crazy to me. It's like just how valuable those kind of everyone's different minds and kind of reading and adjusting to like the scenarios and situations, and everyone just feeding off of each other and giving that information back and forth. It is so like refreshing compared to it always just being the one guy trying to lead a horde like of other players to what he wants.
And in terms of the timings at which you throw utility, like is that exactly planned? Like, you know, okay, we're going to run a default, you need to save a flash, you need to save a smoke, because at 45 seconds remaining you dropping your smoke, and you like, is it down to that level?
You can, the thing is that's cool is like you'll obviously will have like our strat books, which like a lot of the top tier teams will do and a lot of low tier teams will do too, but whether or not they use it effectively or not is what comes down to it. We'll have all of those very specific things kind of set in some defaults or in some strats, but a lot of those times you kind of want to keep up on those tiny little details and timings of smokes and the timings of flashes and stuff like that, because it comes down to a lot of when you're trying to mask what you're trying to do in general. Like when you're wanting to do fakes, when you want to do bait outs and things like that, you have to know all of those little details, because you need to replicate those details when you're trying to elude the team to doing something else, you know, when you're trying to mess with the rotations and everything like that. So knowing that if like it's something like if I'm playing a certain position and they throw the smoke every single time around about the same time of the map, and then this one time I notice there's just not that smoke, I'm pushing.
Yeah,
You know I am, because more times than not that guy's most likely not there. They're doing something else.
I know for a fact what you would do in the situation, because I won't say who, but prior to Comic-Con, I may have been speaking to someone as like with some information and helping them with demos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And your demos, not you specifically, but Bravado, were one of the teams that I did quite a lot of research on, and I have an entire Google sheet on demos of you guys and your tendencies, and
oh damn, that's crazy.
I spent probably
those things are super interesting to read through, because you pick up things like we didn't even realize.
Aaron was one of the main people I watched and went through his stuff. Quite interesting, but I did it for a few teams.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, I'm gonna end the podcast here. What do you want to say before you go? What's coming up for you? What do you want to shout out? Do you want to thank anybody?
Just want to thank Bravado, I guess, and thank you. Just keen for the opportunity that me and the team are given. And then thank you for having me on this. I was keen to just talk, speak my mind. I don't usually do these things, so.
No, it's awesome to have you here. And thanks for agreeing. It's a lot harder to I think get people to agree for a number 1 episode. I think that a lot of people are a lot more scared for that.
I don't know what is intended with this, but I hope.
Dude, I don't even think there's going to be fancy graphics or anything. It's just going to get
it's just
shoved onto YouTube. Yeah, with markers.
Makes sense.
So on that note, cheers guys. Thanks for coming, and
cheers guys.
catch you guys on the next one.